Hello, hello mga kababayan, or sabi nga ng iba dyan, baka naman, kalaban ng bayan daw, yan. Kamusta kayo mga kameta? Good evening, I hope you're having a good time and a good start to a new week. More or less, actually, plano natin kanina was to do this a little bit later on, pero mukhang nag-double booking yung isang co-host natin, wag na natin bookingin. Malalaman nyo rin mamaya yan. But in the meantime, let me go back to this very, very important issue. No? So, mukhang mga kababayan, meron tayong mga developments dito sa confidential fund issue. And for me, mahalaga yan dahil may kinalaman ito dun sa boses ng bayan. No? May kinalaman ito dun sa kakayahan ng bawat Pilipino, no, or yung mga mamayang Pilipino to have some sort of influence dito sa ating policy making, to prove that at the end of the day, no matter how trapo our politics is, no matter how problematic our democracy or quasi-democracy or feudal democracy or cacique democracy or fake democracy is, it still matters for people to be proactive. It still matters for people to express in unison yung kanilang mga dissatisfaction, to express their desire for better government, no, and for good governance. Mahalaga ito, no, at nakikita natin na it looks like once again there is a sign na baka successful nga ang taong bayan when they express their outrage and concerns dito sa explosion ng all sorts of confidential funds and intelligence funds for agencies and departments na mukhang hindi naman talaga designed to deal with national security issues. Now, of course, people will come up with all sorts of explanations, I don't know, from MMDA to DepEd to whatever, na kailangan nila ng intelligence fund, kailangan nila ng national security assistance because meron sila national security related kind of duties. I mean, if you're gonna play that game, then lahat na lang, right? I mean, so ang madali na naman, sasabihin mo lang naman, you know, you need a whole of nation approach to deal with, I don't know, communism, NPA, whatever, then might as well lahat na lang bibigay ng confidential funds, diba? And in that situation, medyo preposterous na, diba? So, let's be very clear, hindi tayo against intelligence or confidential funds, at least in my case, not someone who appreciates national security needs, as someone who carefully studies yung mga pangangailangan ng ating bayan, as someone who carefully studies yung mga threats sa ating bayan. Klaroin natin ito, kailangan talaga natin ng intelligence and confidential funds, but for agencies which are precisely designed to deal with national security issue. So once again, it looks like mga kameta, na yung boses ng bayan, hindi yung kalaban ng bayan, or sabi nila kalaban ng bayan daw, yung boses ng bayan ay sa sobrang lakas ng boses ng bayan, even our very progressive, very high level mga legislators, mga people na sa kongreso natin, they had to listen to it. And speaking of which, let's look at itong video na ito, this speech by Congresswoman Stella Quimbo, Professor Quimbo, Dr. Quimbo, who has been, of course, under fire from so many fronts. We'll discuss that, right, shortly, because I think this Stella Quimbo, kala ko Quiembao yung mamaya na naman tayo, Tito Boy Soto na naman tayo. Quimbo, yan, Stella Quimbo. Pag-usapan natin siya shortly because I think she is a perfect archetype of dilemmas of leadership in a country whereby, you know, you want to do a lot of good things but the system is problematic, so how are you gonna navigate that? Pag-usapan natin yung dilemmas of Stella. I'm not here to apologize for her, but I'm here to be fair in terms of understanding kung ikaw isang napakamatalinong tao at may mga good intentions ka rin, and I think Stella Quimbo more or less meets those criteria. How can you navigate a seemingly impossible situation? Because if you're just in opposition all the time, wala kang magagawa, wala kang contribute, diba? In terms of directly, you know, influencing the operations of government. Indirectly, maybe, yeah, you serve as a fiscalizers. We need people in the opposition, of course, for any healthy democracy. But at the end of the day, hindi ka pwede opposition forever, right? And in the case of Stella Quimbo, Professor Quimbo, she was in the opposition more or less consistently during the Digong administration. But the idea of her spending another 3, 6, whatever years again in the opposition perhaps was something for her that she had to re-examine. And then there were some broader realignments that made her think maybe I can get out of the opposition but still keep my core convictions intact. Well, has she been successful in doing that? Obviously, that's where we see a lot of criticism. That's where we see a lot of backlash. But then again, nakikita natin na si Professor Quimbo is really in this very difficult, if not impossible, situation. Nevertheless, the good news is kanina meron tayong statement by Congresswoman Quimbo um, about mukhang ito na, final na yung decision na ito to move in the right direction. Mukhang narinig na nila yung boses ng bayan. I want you guys to listen carefully to what she has to say, and then let's break it down. No, there's some keywords there that I want you to keep in mind. Words like controversial, like words like on the right side of history. Pay close attention. Of course, also, well, numbers. No, the devil is in the details, particularly in the numbers. Pera ang pinag-usapan. So let's listen. Let's listen to that, mga kameta, because mahalaga ito. Alright? Okay. 1 second daw. Tingnan natin ito. 1 second. Ayan naman tayo. Wait. Wala na. Nasaan na? Pakisabi sa akin kung hindi narinig or something. Okay. Ito okay. Wait, ano yun? Ano yung Shopee? May Shopee yata. Wait lang naman tayo Wait lang, mamaya tayo mag-Shopee. Wait lang. Pag-usapan muna natin ang interest ng bayan. Ito. Ba't ba lang audio? 1 second Ba't ba lang audio? One second. What's going on here? Ulitin natin mga kamets. Narinig nyo ba? Ba't nawala yung audio? Sorry about that. Ulitin natin Otherwise, let me just play it from here. I'm sure marinig nyo pa rin. Okay. I don't know what happened there. Sinasabot
30 million pesos for the FA, 50 million pesos for the Office of the Ombudsman.
Wait lang Masyadong mahina from here. Sorry about that, mga kamets. Wait lang. I really want you guys to pay attention to this, no? Mahalaga ito. I'm trying to bring it out from my browser. 1 second. Lang sana Shopee ang lalabas. Wait lang. Natin to. Ba't nawala yung audio niya dito? Hindi ko gets. Sabotage ba tayo? Anyway, let's
Our panel, as authorized by the House Plenary, reached a unanimous decision to
pakinggan nyo na lang from here. Sorry about that. I hope you guys can hear it. I'll put it here next to your ears, no? 1 second lang. Touch na talaga tayo Bakit di lumalabas?
Communications,
Ayan.
Agriculture. Unanimous decision to remove or realign the controversial confidential funds. As such, our panel, as authorized by the House Plenary, reached a unanimous decision to remove or realign the controversial confidential funds. As such, the
See, unanimous, first of all, unanimous yung decision, right? Unanimous yung decision nila doon sa, the committee that's in charge dito sa appropriations. Unanimous ang decision nila.
Office of the Vice President Confidential Fund.
Controversial.
As such, the Office of the Vice
controversial
President
confidential
and the
funds.
Departments of Education, Information and Communications, Agriculture, and Foreign Affairs are getting zero confidential funds
Zero confidential
under the
funds.
2024 General Appropriations Bill. Instead, bulk of the funding will be channeled to agencies in charge of ensuring national security, especially in the West Philippine Sea. We believe that the House of Representatives is on the right side of history. We are responding to the call of the times, and the volatile situation in the West Philippine Sea calls for the immediate and decisive action to protect our national sovereignty. Based on the panel's recommendation, a total of 1.23 billion pesos in confidential funds were realigned to the following frontline agencies in charge of monitoring and protecting.
Alright, so, mawawala na yung confidential funds ng Department of Foreign Affairs, confidential funds ng Department of Education, mawawalang confidential funds ng Office of the Vice President, and then pupunta siya doon sa mga frontline agencies. So, there's a very clear emphasis dito na hindi tayo against confidential funds or intelligence, but it has to go to the agencies that have to directly deal dun sa mga issues na mahalaga para sa ating national security.
Territorial rights in the West Philippine Sea.
Territorial rights in the West
Frontline
Philippine Sea.
agencies in charge of monitoring and protecting the country's territorial rights in the West Philippine Sea as follows. 300 million pesos for the National Intelligence Corps.
So, 300 million pesos from
Agency.
sa NICA yata to.
100 million pesos for the NSC.
100 million pesos for National
200
Security
million
Council.
pesos to the Philippine Coast Guard for intelligence activities.
Philippine Coast Guard, napakamahalaga yan.
381.8 million pesos to the Department of Transportation for airport development and expansion of Pag-asa
Sa Pag-asa Island, sa West
This
Philippine
is only
Sea.
part of the 3 billion pesos total allocation to the said airport.
3 billion.
81 million pesos was the only portion taken from the confidential funds. Meanwhile, instead of confidential funds, the following agencies will receive the following amounts for MOOE.
So, hindi lang meron din ang MOOE. Ito, again, it gives a degree of flexibility. But then again, tingnan mo. So, billions ng confidential fund na hindi na dapat pupunta talaga sa mga frontal agencies ay pupunta na sa kanila. So, we're talking about National Security Council, we're talking about NICA, we're talking about the Philippine Coast Guard. Ito yung mga ahensya talaga na directly involved dito sa pagprotekta ng ating bayan, yung ating karagatan, yung ating interest, national security po yung trabaho nila. In fact, one of them has National Security Council. The word national security is embedded in its very name. Alright? So we're talking about giving money to the people who deserve it and who need it. And people who are trained to defend our national security per se. But also other agency will get other forms of discretionary funds which are not confidential funds but are nevertheless important. Not as huge, not 1 billion, not 2 billion, not 3 billion pesos, but still these are important. Tingnan nyo.
30 million pesos for the Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources.
BFAR.
25 million pesos for DICT. 30 million pesos for DFA. 50 million pesos for the Office of the Ombudsman.
Okay. So, yung DFA, DICT, of course, may kinalaman pa rin yan sa West Philippine Sea. Whether it's cybersecurity, it's direct diplomacy, it's fighting for rights, it's legal warfare. Before, we're talking about the Bureau of Fisheries, Aquatic Resources. Of course, kasama din yan yung pagprotekta ng mga ating mga fisheries resources, yung mga ating mga isda dyan sa West Philippine Sea. Again, relevant. Of course, that fund is not hundreds of millions or billions, but nevertheless, you're giving support to these kinds of agencies.
And 150 million pesos for DepEd's government assistance to students and teachers in private education. Thank you.
So, meron pa rin 150 million pesos for the Department of Education towards the end. Nakikita niyo yan. Ito.
DepEd's government assistance to students and teachers in private education.
Okay, so there'll still be some sort of, discretionary funds dun sa Department of Education, but it's not the same confidential fund. It's not that large. Alright? So again, mahalaga yan mga kameta. Ulitin natin Ulitin natin, very important ito, very important ito. So before I go and discuss the case of Stella and I think what it tells us more broadly about Philippine politics, pakinggan natin ulit ito from scratch, no?
By the House plenary reached a unanimous decision to remove or realign the controversial
confidential funds.
As such, the Office of the Vice President and the Departments of Education, Information and Communications, Agriculture, and Foreign Affairs
Sama din dyan ang DA niya, no?
confidential funds under the 2024 General Appropriations Bill. Instead, bulk of the funding will be channeled to agencies in charge of ensuring national security, especially in the West Philippine Sea. We believe that the House of Representatives is on the right side of history.
Yan.
We are responding to the call
On the right side of history. So see, nare-realize sila na hindi ito, mga kameta, hindi ito normal na times na pwede tayo mag-trapo style politics. Something very serious is at stake, alright? Something very serious. Hindi pwede tayo mambo-jumbo dyan, alright? Serious stuff are happening. And the fact na ginamit yung term na controversial fund, that means narinig nila yung mga criticism, mga concerns ng tao about good governance, about appropriateness of which agencies are getting which money, and also, very, very important, prioritization, optimization. Optimization. This is very, very important, mga kameta. Even if I were to say, let's say, in principle, or for the sake of debate, let's agree that all agencies need to have some sort of fund to help national security. At the end of the day, since limitado yung resources natin, obviously you have to prioritize and you have to optimize yung limited resources natin to get the most amount of outcome out of it. So the most amount of bang for the limited buck we have, right? So here, nakikita niyo ulit, ina-emphasize dito ni Congresswoman Stella Quimbo.
Volatile situation in the West Philippine Sea calls for the immediate and decisive action to protect our...
Immediate and decisive action sa West Philippine Sea. Yun ang kailangan natin. So gets ng Kongreso yan. Immediate and decisive action. Alright? Again, important. Yeah, we can fight, I don't know, insurgency, whatever. Yeah, sure, that's important. But should it be DepEd? Should it be OVP? Should it be the ICT? Should it be DA? Again, what is really the urgent issue? It's not like yung mga, I don't know, yung mga rebelde ang magte-take over ng Manila or big cities. No. Alright? Anyone knows that even the claim of the previous administration was that talo na sila. So, hindi sila ganun ka-urgent and major concerns. What's urgent and major is what's happening dyan sa West Philippine Sea. Alright? What's happening there in the West Philippine Sea. Yun po yung urgent. Yun po yung serious. These are not my words, mga kameta. These are not my words, mga kababayan, o yung mga kalaban ng bayan. Hindi po itong mga words ko. These are the words of your own congresswoman, someone who not long ago was being accused of or being characterized as an apologist for the confidential funds and Maharlika Fund and all sorts of whatever fund out there, right? Look at the words she's using kasi mahalaga yan eh. You have to properly analyze what she's saying there.
National sovereignty. Based on the panel's recommendation, a total of 1.23 billion pesos in confidential funds were realigned to the following frontline agencies.
So 1.23, sorry, not 3. So under 1.3 billion pesos of that's still huge, right? Will be realigned.
In charge of monitoring and protecting the country's territorial rights in the West Philippine Sea as follows.
Okay, well here, medyo may technical. You don't use the word territorial rights, you use the word sovereign rights. Right? Because ang pinag-usapan po natin dito ay mga karagatan at yung mga karapatan natin dyan sa ating exclusive economic zone. So her term is not perfect. She should have used sovereign rights, but she should have used territorial integrity, protection, and sovereign rights. But anyway, I don't want to overdo it. But you get my point na gets din nila sobrang mahalaga yung nangyari ngayon sa West Philippine Sea. Urgent po yan. Kaya accordingly, you get 1.2, almost 1.3 billion confidential funds from, I don't know, Department of Agriculture, DepEd, OVP, whatever. Lagay mo dun sa mga frontline agencies.
100 million pesos for the National Intelligence Coordinating Agency.
NICA.
100 million pesos for the NSC.
National Security Council.
200 million pesos to the Philippine Coast Guard for intelligence activities.
Philippine Coast Guard.
381.8 million pesos to the Department of Transportation for airport development and
sa
expansion
Pag-asa.
of Pag-asa Island Airport.
Boom.
This is only
Infrastructure.
part of the 3 billion pesos total allocation to the said airport. The 381 million pesos was the only portion taken from the confidential funds. Meanwhile, instead of confidential funds, the following agencies will receive the following amounts for MOOT. 30 million pesos for the Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources.
BFAR.
25 million pesos for DICT. 30 million
DICT
pesos
kasi kailangan ng cyber warfare, fight against misinformation, fight against potential sabotage ng ating mga infrastruktura, all of those things. This is very serious, mga kameta. All right? So again, sorry, 1.23 billion. So I have the exact number here. Don't worry, lalabas natin yan. But I just want you guys to hear it directly kasi from the good congresswoman.
50 million pesos for the Office of the Ombudsman. And 150 million pesos for DepEd's government assistance to students and teachers in private education. Thank you very much.
Okay, so there'll still be something going to the DepEd but not in the form of confidential fund. Alright? Okay, so let's break this down, mga kameta. Apologies again dun sa technical issues. For some reason, I don't know why hindi lumalabas yung video itself as I wanted you guys to. But don't worry, I'll just post the link sa baba para makita nyo naman yung konteksto ng sinasabi natin dito. Alright? So again, just so that clear itong sinasabi natin dito. So House denies 2024 confidential fund request of Office of the Vice President, Department of Education, Department of Agriculture. So 3 of these have to do, 2 of them with Sara, 1 of them with Bongbong Marcos, DICT, and the Department of Foreign Affairs. Alright? So the total is 1.1 billion and 230 million pesos. Yun po yung marirealign. So the agencies and their confidential fund requests are the following. Okay, so again diba, dapat medyo tayo, diba, meticulous tayo para kitang-kita natin yung breakdown. So ito po yung breakdown ng mga requests ng confidential fund. Alright, yung mga ka-YouTubers, don't worry about it. All of this will be out later on. I-post ko rin yung mga links. Ito kasi ayaw natin na mag-marites na magsalita. Numbers matter. And the reason why you have someone like Professor Quimbo there is because you need someone who's a numbers person. She is a numbers person, right? So let's really go to this. So ito po yung requested. So Appropriations Committee, napaka-powerful yan. Right? So ang combined na natanggal or ma-realign, so ibig sabihin initially there was attempt, but ma-realign is 1.005 billion. So may 200 plus billion pa rin. 225 million to be particular, no? So yun yung initial request. So now that's turned down. Ito po ang mangyayari ngayon. So yung in-order na nila sa Shopee, in-order sa Shopee ng mga kaibigan natin dyan. Ayan, medyo malaki-laki, billion in-order sa Shopee. Ito ang dumating. Alright? Kasi dami nag-reklamo. Yan. O yan. Dahil nga, mas pangailangan ng ating mga ahensya na may kinalaman sa West Philippine Sea. So again so andyan po yung breakdown. Yung requested po, the agencies and their confidential requests were 500 million pesos for Vice President, 300 million Office of the Vice President, 300 million pesos for Department of Information and Communication, 115 million pesos for Department of Education. So that's combined of 615 million for a certain side, let's just put it that way. Department of Agriculture, 50 million pesos. Pero ito yung masaklap. Yung DFA, 5 million lang hiningi nila, na-realign pa. Pero actually, babalik din sa kanila in a good way as we'll show later on. Alright, so parang nadamay pa yung DFA doon, 5 million lang palang hiningi nila. Parang, diba? Yung isa nga, 500 million. But anyway. Now, so, sorry, parang hindi na pupunta sa kanila. Instead, yung House Appropriations Committee Chairperson Zaldico said a total of 1.3 billion confidential funds will be realigned to the agencies at the forefront of asserting our rights sa West Philippine Sea. Department of Transportation, because sila po ay in charge dun sa infrastructure development, reinforcing yung ating mga claims sa West Philippine Sea, they'll get 381 million for the development of Pag-asa. Sobrang mahalaga yan, mga kameta. Sobrang mahalaga yan. Parati ko sinasabi, yun yung kakulangan ng Aquino administration. Ang dami nilang ginawa na legal warfare, pumunta sa diplomacy, hingi dito, hingi dyan, nakikita natin dyan. Pero ang kulang talaga mga kamets, yung pag-develop ng yung sarili nating infrastruktura, they're on the ground talaga. Kasi kahit anong panalo mo sa korte, mga kameta, kung wala kang presence on the ground, kung ikaw lang yung mukhang squatter dyan, tapos yung mga ibang kalaban mo, Malaysia, Vietnam, Taiwan, China, lahat sila, may 5-star hotel na sila dyan. Literally yung iba may 5-star resorts na layang-layang in the case of Malaysia. May mga renewable energy development projects na sila dyan sa mga Vietnamese and Chinese. Yung Ito Aba ng Taiwan sa sobrang developed, nakagawa pa sila yata ng kunyaring fake na fountain just to say na it can support human habitation on its own para it will be qualifying as an island, although of course that was turned down by the international court. But you know what I'm saying, para tayo mga kawawa doon for a very, very long time. And sa aking palagay, yun talagang mali ng Aquino administration because the Aquino administration should have fought the fight in an optimal way, not in a miscongeniality way. Of course, it's important for us to have the moral high ground, but if you have a basic understanding of international, you'll understand that as long as you're not making fake islands out of low tide elevations, as long as you're not, quote, changing the nature of the disputed island, dapat hindi problema yan. So finally ngayon, meron tayong pagkakataon na talagang i-develop itong mga isla na yan. In fairness, actually panahon pa lang ni Digong, thanks to Secretary Lorenzana among others, sinimulan natin itong pag-develop ng ating mga infrastructure dyan sa West Philippine Sea. So tuloy-tuloy po ito. So there'll be 381.8 million pesos sa pag-develop ng ating infrastruktura doon sa Pag-asa kung saan may mga tao tayo. Dati may mayor pa tayo na resident mayor. May mayor pa rin tayo but I'm not sure kung resident mayor. Meron tayong mga sundalo. Lumalaki po yung mga population natin dyan, infrastructure natin dyan. Yung airstrip po natin dyan from 1977 pa yata, kailangan natin pagandahin yung area na yan para hindi tayo mukhang kawawa doon. Kasi scramble po nangyari. So, good job. National Intelligence Coordinating Agency, of course, ito yung version natin ng, alam nyo na, diba? So, 300 million pesos kasi kailangan nila mag-gather ng intelligence, lalo na doon sa mga, alam nyo na, mga, Makapili 2.0. Buyaka siya. Diba? Yung mga ganon, yung mga Makapili Club. Kamusta kayo dyan? Yan. Philippine Coast Guard, 200 million for intelligence activities. Sabi siya, Philippine Coast Guard, of course, kailangan talaga nila. Feeling ko dapat mas malaki talaga ang Philippine Coast Guard. Siguro 400 million Philippine Coast Guard agad, no? So kulang pa rin yan, but better than nothing. Kasi yung confidential intelligence fund ng Philippine Coast Guard over 17 years ay mas maliit pa dun sa annual yata na confidential fund nung isang opisina walang kinalaman sa West Philippines or national security, right? I mean, for anyone who really knows a thing or two for national security at hindi nagpapadala sa kaek-ekan propaganda. The National Security Council, of course, they're in charge of policy making, big picture, long-term policy making, coordinating different efforts by different agencies. Andyan yung pangalan pa lang nila, National Security Council. So they get 100 million pesos. So good. This is interesting. Now, ito yung dito ako na. Pero ito actually nangyari. Ito po yung interesting. Yung DFA na turn down yung 5 million pesos request nila, but bumalik siya 6 times bigger in a different form, but not in a confidential fund, in a different kind of discretionary, semi-discretionary fund. So actually, in fairness naman, DFA is still gonna get what it deserves because, well, diplomacy, DFA, kamusta naman yung special envoy natin si Teddy Boy, articulate boy, yan. Anong ginagawa niya? Nakita ko yung naka-yellow jacket ba yata siya or something, pumunta dyan sa West Philippines, yan. Mga Siga Boys. Yan, yung mga walang publication na totoo pero ang daming yabang. Okay, balik tayo dito. So actually the DFA, although yung 5 million pesos nilang request for confidential fund ay na-turn down, nakuha naman nila ito sa in terms of maintenance and other operating expenses. So I mean, it's not confidential intelligence fund, it's not a full kind of discretionary fund, but it gives you some room for augmenting yung mga capabilities mo in ways that have to do something with national security. So 30 million pesos for DFA, 25 for DICT, 30 million for BFAR, Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources, and then yung 50 million for Office of the Ombudsman and DepEd, and 150 million for government assistants, students, teachers. Okay, so eto naman kasi Well, it gives some fiscal room. So in fairness, um, let me actually defend DepEd on this note because sa aking palagay, DepEd really needs a lot of funding and support. Alright? Not necessarily confidential intelligence fund. Sabi nga natin, dapat yung mga ganyan, mapunta na lang dun sa mga ahensya na sa frontline. Pero pag tinignan po natin, yung mga krisis na meron tayo sa ating edukasyon, kung tinignan po natin yung lalim ng problema natin when it comes to learning deficiency po, one of the worst in the world po tayo, and easily one of the worst in Asia, right? Then, masasabi po natin na we have to get the best possible assistance to the Department of Education. So, let's be very clear. I am for supporting the Department of Education and giving them all sorts of funds necessary to deal directly with things that have to do with education. And things that have to do something dun sa education crisis na meron tayo. Don't worry mga kameta, ilalabas po natin yung data that shows how deep and profound is the problem in terms of learning poverty, in terms of learning deficiencies, in terms of digital divide, in terms of overall competence natin, no, when it comes to basic education kumpara sa ibang bansa here, mga kameta. Ilabas natin yan. Isa sa ating kaibigan na Vietnamese, I think Paris-based scholar also posted this. I'll show you guys how deep the problem of DepEd is. So just to be very clear, we are here, I'm 100% here supporting the Department of Education. I believe the Department of Education has to get maximum support when it comes to dealing with real issues that have to do with education. And my best wishes to Vice President and DepEd Secretary Sara Duterte on this fronts, no? Ito po, just to give you an idea na gaano kalalim. So ito po yung ginagawa natin sa ating meta. So this is not me just interviewing some guy and getting their ideas. No. We have our own research, we have our own analysis, and we have our data. World-class, cutting-edge data. Right? Now, sometimes not the most updated because, we're waiting for some of the new data to come in. But ito po, kung tinignan nyo dito, even if middle income country po tayo, hindi tayo mahirap na bansa, middle income na country na tayo, from lower middle income, hopefully, God willing, maging upper middle income tayo. Kung makita nyo doon sa pinakataas, no? Let me make this big enough so that you guys, everyone can see it. Tignan nyo, yung Philippines, yan. So, yung learning poverty po natin ay nasa 90% territory na almost. So, at our level of income, our level of income is not more or less Vietnam tayo and Indonesia. But look at Indonesia. So Indonesia's learning poverty at similar levels of income of just under $9.5 thousand in purchasing power parity is at 50%. Philippines is lampas 90%, mga kameta. But let me make you feel even worse about this. Tingnan nyo po yung Vietnam. Ang Vietnam po, kasing hirap or kasing middle class ng Philippines. In fact, the year this was taken, 2018, they were even poorer than the Philippines in per capita income. But their learning poverty is below 20%. So we're more than 90% in terms of learning poverty. They're below 20%. And Indonesia na medyo minsan may pagkasabog din yung kanilang sistema, state institution. Sila po ay 50%. So, ang lalim po ng problema natin. And just to make this clear, these are the numbers before the pandemic. Before Tatay Digong managing, or more accurately, mismanaging the pandemic. In fact, kung maalala nyo, we were among the last countries to reopen schools because napakapalpak and delayed yung management of yung mga preparatory safeguards na kailangan bago bumalik mga bata. So a lot of our neighbors were, not only were they already at a far better situation than us before the pandemic, but they were also way better in dealing with the pandemic and ensuring na hindi mapag-iwanan yung kanilang mga bata. So, these numbers, horrific numbers of the Philippines at around 90% poverty, learning poverty compared to Indonesia and Vietnam at similar levels of per capita income with 50% in case of Indonesia and barely 20% Vietnam, just tells you gaano kalalim yung problema ng education crisis natin. At hindi ito kasalanan ni Sara Duterte. Sara Duterte was not your DepEd secretary over the past 10, 20, 30, 4 years. No. So the DepEd needs funds. But funds for things that have to directly do dito sa education, learning, poverty, super crisis na meron tayo. So on that level, I'm 100% support. Let's give all the money and resources we need. Of course, make sure, with all the safeguards and but it has to go. So, mga kameta, let's be very clear, no? So, pag kinikriticize ng tao yung confidential funds, it's not because necessarily kalaban ka ng bayan or you don't want support. No, we want support for DepEd and support on precisely things that DepEd is designed to do, which is to deal with this learning poverty crisis that we have, right? This is a next level crisis, mga kameta. This is a next level crisis, no? So, sobrang seryoso ito, no? Just to keep things in mind, no? Oh, so, I mean, again, just to give you an idea, so parang ang matatalo lang yata natin sa region natin ay Cambodia. I mean, again, this is before the pandemic. So, see, we're fair, okay? We're not here just to bash one person. No, we look at everything based on data and evidence. Based on data and evidence. This is another figure, let me show you guys, that shows ang natalo lang natin yata is Laos. I mean, we're parang Cambodia pa is slightly better than us in this survey. I mean, look at these numbers, mga kameta. Talagang ay, good luck sa Pilipinas. Kaya sana, 'di ba? Sana sa DepEd galingan niyo talaga 'yan kasi malalim talagang problema. At syempre, hindi mo masisisi sila Sara Duterte, bago lang sila diyan. But they have to up their game and they have to really focus on what's their portfolio here, which is, dealing with the learning poverty education crisis na meron tayo. Laos lang yata natatalo natin dito sa region natin base dun sa mga comparable countries. So, malalim po yung problema natin. So, I'm supportive of funds going to, these are not confidential funds, just to be clear, going to DepEd that have to do with helping yung ating mga estudyante. Alright? So let's be very clear about those things. Again, so dun sa mga haters, dun sa mga pakulto-kulto, dun sa mga fanatic, dun sa mga hindi nag-iisip, defend lang dahil manok mo yan, ganyan. Eto sorry ganyan po kami mag-analyze. Nag-iisip po kami, tinitignan namin yung data, nag-research po kami, at fair kami. I'm all for supporting DepEd when it comes to dealing with the serious problem of learning poverty and learning crisis na meron tayo sa ating bansa. Alright? Yun po yung kailangan natin ayusin dito. So I have no problem with money going to that. Alright? Obviously, again, given na we have to make sure na everything goes to what it's supposed to go to. But you get what I'm saying? So, huwag naman kayong hater na porkit ayun yung tao na in charge ng DepEd, you oppose any kind of funding for it. It shouldn't be that way. Because the DepEd's problem is serious and profound. Kaya gusto ko sana, maka-move on na tayo dito sa lahat ng mga red tagging, kaek-ekan na mga ganyan. Focus na tayo dun sa seryosong problema ng learning poverty. And guess what? I'm saying this as someone, alright, who's an educator himself. Alright? Not only a vlogger or public educator, who's an educator itself. Nagturo lang naman tayo sa atin ng Lasal, UP, mga ganyan lang naman. Diba? So siguro may alam naman tayo ng konti. Alright? Sa education. Alright! So yun lang po yung ating maliit na advice sa ating mga kaibigan dyan. Diba? Na huwag tayo masyadong defensive dun sa mga confidential fund, yung mga ganyan-ganyan. Huwag natin tawagin ng kalaban ng bayan just because na-criticize yung ganun. So, saan ang gagawin natin ngayon? Na reallocate ng mga congressman natin. So, sasabihin natin, mga congressman natin na, walang, appreciation sa national security? Of course not. Of course not, diba? Of course not. Sayang, nakalimutan ko tanggalin ito. Ba't dapat nagreklamo kayo? So, I hope I was loud enough. Hindi ko pala binalik yan. Alright, so, katulad na in-explain natin mga kameta, malalim talaga yung problema natin sa sector na edukasyon. So we need support for those sectors, but support that are precisely catered to dealing with problems that have to do with alleviating learning poverty, especially after the whole pandemic era, etc. Alright? And I'm also very glad na it looks like public pressure in many ways has worked and public pressure has encouraged yung ating mga congressmen, congresswomen to do the right thing on this and to give this national security oriented funds to the very agencies that are designed to deal with national security issues. And when it comes to national security problems, nothing is as urgent and as important. And just look at what Stella Quimbo herself was saying. Nothing as urgent and as important as the West Philippine Sea. Clear and present po yung problem dyan. You want to talk about communist threats, etc.? There's a giant communist nation out there who's claiming a huge part of our West Philippine Sea. So keep those things in mind, alright? Yan. So wag na tayo dyan sa kalaban ng bayan kind of rhetoric. Doon naman tayo sa panalo ang bayan. Alright? Now, let me be absolutely clear because may mga feeling smart dyan too good for school na it's like, nagpapautol lang kayo for sure. May gagawin na naman sila later on. Like, we have no illusions whatsoever dito sa ating trapo-dominated political system. Of course. Of course. But you have to celebrate every little victory because that will give you the mileage, that will give you the fuel, that will give you the inspiration to fight the next phase. Because if you really want to have a real democracy, you really want to make sure na hindi purong katrapuhan lang nangyari, purong kalokohan nangyari, you have to take each little victory one step at a time and move and move and move. And you never know. In a generation or two, the Philippines is a far better place. Because let me tell you this, yung mga bansa na prosperous, yung mga bansa na napakaganda ng democracy nila, hindi yan bumaksak from heaven na naging ganyan. You see, the Norways of this world, hindi sila, happiest place, most democratic place 200, 300, 400 years ago, right? Mga Vikings lang nandun dati, di ba? So, it takes struggle. It takes constant, perpetual struggle. That's why it's important to celebrate little victories. As little as they are, they're important because that gives you the fuel and inspiration to move forward. So yes, dun sa mga gusto maging cynical, that's your choice, but you're not being helpful. And let me be very clear, being cynical doesn't make you smart. Being healthily skeptical makes you smart. Of course, we'll have a separate lecture on Montaigne and healthy skepticism and critical skepticism. Ibang lecture na yan, alright? Hindi na ako pupunta sa mga ganyan lecture, mga epistemological lectures na yan. But, let me just say, naiirita ako dun sa mga feeling magaling dahil lang cynical sila. Well, guess what? Pabigat lang kayo. Kung wala kayong makontribute na positive, right? Pabigat lang kayo. Alright? Now, I wanted Sana to talk about Stella Quimbo, and na naman tayo, Tito Boy Soto. Pero, let's just leave it for another day. Medyo na, mamaya na lang. Marami akong gustong sabihin. Pero, I'll let Ronald say it na lang. Okay, so, si Ronald yata, nag-double booking ngayon. Ayaw umamin, pero nag-gets ko kagad. Kasi sabi niya, available ako at this time. Ay, naku, alam ko nangyari siya. Alright, so mamaya na lang with Ronald, pag-usapan namin ng balikan natin to. Mar Rojas, they used to work together, of course, din sa kabineta ni Aquino. Pag-usapan din natin si Stella Quimbo, yung kanyang dilemma, as still a Liberal Party member and as someone who sees herself as progressive. Like, my question always is, where do you draw the line? I completely understand that if you want to affect change, you have to be there where decisions are being made. You have to have a seat at the table. Gets ko yan. Pero hindi pwede na pumunta ka lang dyan and then lahat na. Hindi pwede gano'n, diba? So, as much as it's important for you to have engagement with the ruling establishment to affect good change, you have to also be clear with your red lines, right? And the debate here is what's going on. Well, at the very surface level, what's going on is this. Multiple times nung nagwalang tao, nag-criticize ng tao, we saw na nag-walk back. Right? Nag-walk back doon sa Maharlika Fund. Nag-walk back doon sa SSS, GSIS Fund. Ilang beses na-revise yung Maharlika Fund dahil may mga criticism and backlash from the public. Guess what? Again, no one has any illusions about Maharlika Fund being, the most effective, transparent, whatever, sovereign wealth fund out there. Right? Again, but the fact that they had to make so many revisions over and over again means public pressure matters and public pressure works. Speaking of the other Maharlika-esque controversial fund, confidential fund. Dahil sa daming mga nagsalita, daming nagreklamo, daming at least humingi ng clarification, daming nag-raise ng mga red flags, ayan, meron tayo itong response. So, this is what it means when you say pressure from below, reform at the top. Because kung walang pressure from people, kung walang mobilization from people, kung puro cynical lang tayo, or puro lang tayo yes man, or puro lang tayo para kay tatay, yung mga ganun, or ano, unity na lang, yung wag na tayo mag-isip, talagang walang mangyari sa ating bansa. So what we need is healthy skepticism and inspirational marathon-like kind of mobilization for democratic reform. Small victories here and there will matter a lot if you know how to appreciate them, and if you know how to translate them into your fuel for the next stage, right? Because it's a journey of 1,000 miles. So every step matters and every victory matters. Yun lang sinasabi natin nun. So in many ways, congratulations for anyone who was cared for West Philippine Sea, like yours truly. For many who cared about transparency, many who cared about prioritization and optimization ng ating yung kaban ng bayan. Guess what? It worked. It worked. So hindi ko na alam dun sa mga kritisismo na yung mga nagkikriticize sa confidential fund ay kalaban ng bayan. Wait, excuse me, like kakasabi lang ng Kongreso na ilagay na lang natin ito dun sa mga ahensya na may kinalaman talaga sa national security, especially dun sa urgent issue ng West Philippine Sea. On that note, thank you very much mga kameta. I really appreciate you guys paying attention even if madami natin mga technical problems. May mga, one-man team tayo dito. At medyo pumalpak din tayo pala. Naiwan ko pala yung lapel natin dyan. I hope you still heard me. But at least you can see the numbers there. So every analysis we make here mga kameta, based yan sa evidence-based, right, scholarly, academic, policy papers. Pinag-aaralan po natin na mabuti lahat ng mga issue na to. Tinitignan po natin mga detalye. Tinitignan po natin yung mga numero. Hindi tayo pwede bara-bara lang or partisan lang or hater mode lang. Hindi. At then again, my best wishes doon sa mga ahensya na in charge of protecting the West Philippine Sea, but also my best wishes to the Department of Education in terms of dealing with this other very serious problem. It's not the national security problem, but it's still a major problem, which is learning poverty, education, basic education deficiency. Malalim na problema yan. So I really hope our DepEd will make the most out of this realigned amounts that was given to them. Diba? So meron sila ngayon maintenance and other operating expenses, MOE, ng 115 million pesos for the government assistance to students and teachers in private education. So tuloy-tuloy dapat ang suporta natin sa ating minamahal na Department of Education, ating mga minamahal ng mga guro, mga estudyante, because we have a lot to catch up on. Dahil ang dami-daming kapalpakan nangyari ng pandemic, na pag-iwanan naman ng Pilipinas, and those graphs that I showed you, kitang-kita natin dito, no? Bago pa lang nag-pandemic, behind the curve na tayo. And guess what? The pandemic made it even worse dahil napaka-incompetent yung isang tao dyan in charge ng time ng pandemic. But anyway, on that note, thank you very much, mga kameta. Thank you very much again. Now, kung may mga magaling dyan, mga haters dyan na may more educated data and analysis, go ahead. Be my guest. I always welcome. We love debating, but based on proper analysis, scholarly, policy-oriented papers. Alright? Huwag yung mga bara-bara, barangay level, geopolitics, mga ganyan. Alright? On that note, bago tayo naman, kinokontrol natin sarili natin. Let's be nice. Let's be nice. Alright? Let's be nice. Para sa bayan, huwag yung mga kalaban ng bayan. Para sa bayan to. Alright? And congratulations! Good job! Now, tuloy-tuloy. That's the good news. Now, the not so good news is, hindi pa tapos. Tuloy-tuloy dapat ito. Alright? This is how democracy works. This is how active citizenship works. Alright? But sometimes it actually works. So good news, yes, little victory, but little victories matter if you know how to properly appreciate them. On that note, thank you very much mga kameta. And later on, yung kasama natin nagda-double booking, baka he'll be available. So ituloy natin yung discussion na ito. God bless. Thank you very much.